Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. Right now I'm in quarantine because I tested positive for COVID-19. The current law and regulation in South Korea is to isolate for 7 days from the date that you get your test, your PCR tester. The next day after I had the PCR, I tested positive. So I have to quarantine for 7 days. And during the quarantine, I thought it would be a good idea to catch up on some pretty overdue vlogs that I've been meaning to make. The first upload I wanted to do was my 6-month update, my 6 months of living in South Korea, what I found to be positive experiences, what I found to be negative experiences, just some observation, what it's like being a teacher here. And I also picked 3 random questions from an open question box that I did on my Instagram story. So I will answer those 3 random questions at the end. I do have my laptop here with some prompts and kind of a little script, so I don't go off track because I know what I'm like. Let's begin. I'm going to do this in chunks. I've sort of separated out some categories. Then I'm going to finish with the 3 questions that I picked at random from the Instagram story. Also, if I look a bit puffy or I sound a little bit nasally or just gravelly, it is the COVID. Unfortunately, I have some symptoms. So I wanted to start off with sort of general things about South Korea that I've observed, and I'm going to split those out between positive things generally about South Korea and negative things generally about South Korea. Then I want to move on to more personal experiences that I've had, 3 good ones and 3 negative ones, so you can sort of paint a picture of what it's like generally to be in South Korea versus my personal experience as well. So 3 things positive about South Korea in general. I'd say first and foremost, the number 1 thing was the crime rate in South Korea being really low. So compare that to the UK, where we have a pretty high crime rate. Just to give you an example, in Korea, they absolutely love cafes. So you will find loads of coffee shops, loads of cafes that are all kind of like boutique, or they're like got a theme, and they're very Instagrammable. So if you're very into that kind of thing, South Korea is the place to be. And a lot of people in public places, especially like cafes or restaurants or even like food halls, you will often see tables with no people there, but people have just left all of their belongings at the table. I'm talking purse, handbag, backpack if they're a traveler, suitcase, mobile phone on the table, coat, everything. Leave the stuff to save their table, and then they will go off and order their food or get their drinks or whatever they're doing. And for me, there is absolutely no way I would ever do that in the UK, because I can guarantee if I left my phone on the table or my purse or wallet on the table, it will be gone within seconds. There's just so much trust, that feeling of being safe enough to leave your belongings somewhere and know that they're not going to be taken. So oftentimes you might even see laptops left on the table. Everything is just left at the table. They don't pack everything in and take it to the bathroom. Honestly, if I was in the UK, had my laptop, I would probably take it to the bathroom with me. I think it's the CCTV, the amount of CCTV. I feel like the crime rate is so low because it would be really easy to find out. So yeah, number 1 biggest shock to me generally in South Korea was the crime rate being so low. Number 2 would be the public transport in Korea is so efficient. And I'm even talking like my countryside bus is very rarely late. Very, very rarely late. When you go into the cities like Seoul, the trains, the subways, very rarely would you have an issue or a problem, and it's so efficient and very regular. Compare that to the UK. If you know anything about the UK public transport, it is terrible, especially trains. Like oftentimes they'll just be cancelled for the most stupid reason. I'm just like in awe at how good public transport can be when I'm used to just like absolutely terrible public transport. So that's definitely a positive, second positive. And then the third positive, I would say like the delivery services, like delivery sites for groceries or just like online shopping or even just food delivery, like takeout food. It's so easy and convenient to order anything. And I saw it for myself, and I've been walking along the Han River and people just get takeout food delivered to the middle of the park nearby the Han River. Food delivery, scooters, moped things are everywhere because like delivery service is just so crazy, and you can get anything anywhere pretty much. Okay, let's talk about 3 negative things generally I've noticed about South Korea. Firstly, which is probably the thing that affects me the most, is that fresh produce, fruits and vegetables are so expensive. I would be broke if I tried to eat fresh fruit and vegetables every single day. So that being said, I'd say a lot of people rely on convenience store food going out to eat in a restaurant is actually cheaper than trying to cook something fresh yourself. So really, like, cooking at home is a luxury. And also in the apartment, when I actually get around to doing an apartment tour for you guys, you will see like the kitchen that you're supplied with is not really a fully functioning kitchen. So you're very limited anyway on what you can do. And that's sort of like the bog standard, what you can get in Korea in an apartment for one person, and sometimes even two people. So for me, that is definitely one of the negatives, and it's a general thing, but it also affects me personally. So second thing is that Korea is a pretty homogenous country. Obviously, it's really developed rapidly over such a short amount of time, and there's been such an influx of foreign visitors for tourism or working here that even though it has such an influx, it mainly hits the cities, and a lot of countryside and rural places, they might not be used to Western foreigners visiting Korea or living in Korea. So that can be a bit of a shock for them. And it can also be a shock for me, because that means that I've had some differing experiences from being a foreigner in a rural place in Korea. The reason I've put it as a negative is because it can be extremely daunting to be in the countryside. Probably be very different, and it wouldn't even be on this prompt if I lived in a city. It's definitely took an effect on me mentally living here, so I would say that it's a negative if you are going to be moving or living somewhere rural in South Korea. And the third one has to be the crazy standard for beauty and also tech. What I've found is that Korea seems to be a really faddy country. There's so much advertising, and there's so much using celebrities to advertise. Honestly, the advertisement using idols and celebrities and actors and actresses is everywhere. And if you go to places in Seoul such as Gangnam or Shinsa or Apgujeong, you will notice just like rows and rows and rows of cosmetic surgery clinics. In fact, I wish I'd got a picture or a video of Apgujeong, because my boyfriend's workplace is there, and nearby is just a main street that is just cosmetic surgery. Like, I would say there's maybe like a convenience store dotted around in there, and maybe like a phone store, but generally the whole street is just cosmetic surgery. It's I've never seen anything like it before. And I do just want to put it out there that there's no shade in having plastic surgery. If it's a personal choice, if that's what you desire. I've had filler before, so I'm open to anything that makes you feel more confident and happier in your own skin. But what I will say, the difference is that it's kind of shoved down your throat. The beauty standard generally here, if I get this right, is a symmetrical, really slim face, sort of like a V-line shape. That is usually achieved through shaving the jawbone away and literally reshaping the face. Also things like the eyelid surgery to remove a monolid so they can have the crease in the eyelid. Plastic surgery is often given as a gift to girls and boys for things like graduation. So it's like an acceptable gift as well. The negative is not the plastic surgery itself. I think everyone should have a choice. It's more like the marketing and the faddiness side that I find to be the negative thing about that. Okay, so let's talk about the 3 best experiences for me personally. Number 1 for me has to be meeting my boyfriend, and also meeting and being welcomed in by his family. And honestly, I have like a little Korean family here. I call his mom Oma and his dad Abuji. It's just so lovely, and they're so kind and generous to me. I've also met some amazing friends that I will never forget, and I will stay in touch with forever, because we've been through so much together that you just can't not be in touch with those people anymore. But you've had a shared experience, and I think when you've come through something together as a group, then I feel like we're that kind of team, like we're epic full 2021 and we all went through that together. So I feel like I have like a really cool group of friends like that are kind of being my family, and we look out for each other here, that are from all over the world. So that's pretty cool. The second positive thing specifically for me is finally having a job that feels fulfilling. So if you didn't know, before I came to Korea, I actually worked in an office for 10 years in a corporate job, and it really made me ill with my mental health. I ended up just quitting as I was applying for jobs in South Korea. I quit before I even knew that I had a placement in Cheongnam. If you're my friend, you know personally like some experiences that I've had in Korea that have just like ticked boxes for me, that have just been like, this is why I came here. Maybe one day I can give you more details and information about some experiences that I've had, but if you're my close friend here, you know what I'm talking about. But yeah, the point was that I have a job here that is fulfilling. So teaching kids really gives me a sense of accomplishment and fulfillment that I'm helping kids to learn something. And when I see them progress, it really makes me more driven to want to help them progress even more. And the last one I would say is also a positive. I know I talked about rural Korea being a little negative before, but actually I guess it's opened my eyes to experience somewhere I would never ever visit. And even if I hadn't worked in Korea, if I ever was going to visit as a tourist, so apart from like the Hanok villages, which are a little bit outside the cities, I wouldn't have ever traveled this rural. I can experience both things, whereas people who live in the cities aren't going to experience the rural side. So now we'll go on to the 3 worst experiences for me personally. The first one being, if you follow me on Instagram, you'll already know this, and also I've done a video that's going to come out in a couple of weeks, is my trip to the emergency room for migraines. It was so daunting and anxiety inducing that I don't ever want to repeat that for the time that I'm in Korea. So I'm really trying to manage my migraines, but being in an emergency room in a foreign country is not fun, especially when there's a big language barrier. I would definitely say that was the worst experience I've had. Second, I would say like it's led on to me feeling really homesick at some points. I honestly didn't think I would experience much homesickness, especially when I first arrived here, because the novelty was still fresh and it was like exciting. I was living in Korea and it was all brand new and sparkly. But when you live here and you have to work every day, and there's like trials and tribulations of day-to-day life and getting around, and especially, I don't want to bang on about this, but living rurally has its challenges. Sometimes you just miss home. You just miss your friends, you miss your family, miss my dog, just going downstairs and like having a cup of tea. And I also miss like having a garden and an outside space. Oh, and I miss having a gym, because I don't have a gym nearby, and the gym in the UK from me used to be like 5 minutes down the road. I used to work there, so that's what I miss, and it did lead me to be homesick quite a lot, and also like crying loads. Bless my boyfriend, because he was just trying to console me, but I was just like so upset about things that I just cried and was just wanted to. I wish I could teleport home just even for like 1 hour and just talk to my mom, talk to my dad, chill with my sister, just pet my dog. Yeah, homesickness is definitely something that's affected me a couple of times, especially when I'm ill as well. And the third worst experience is also touched on this in the Q&A video I did with John, my boyfriend, but I have been prejudicedly, how do you say this? I've had prejudice against me for being a foreigner in my town. So 3 separate instances of men, older men, shouting at me in my town. Each time left me feeling between uncomfortable and scared. So that was definitely one of the top 3 worst experiences that I've had in South Korea. Now I'm going to talk about 6 months being a elementary school, public school teacher. So I came here through EPIC, and I teach at 2 elementary schools. They are on the same street. They're about 5 minutes on the bus from each other. Part of me doesn't really understand why they have 2 schools on the same road. Across both schools, across grades 3 to 6 at both schools, I have less than 100 students. Some of my classes are just 2 students. And my job in the most part is to engage the kids with English, whether that's through activities or sometimes they want to play games. And then we also follow a curriculum book, so a national curriculum that we take the ideas from, the subjects from. But overall, I teach alone. I've definitely learned a lot in terms of like engaging differently with different grades. So what works for 3rd grade would not work for 6th grade, and vice versa. And even though I don't co-teach and I'm comfortable not co-teaching, I think it works when you're in a small rural school setting. But if you were working in like a big city school, maybe had like 30 or 40 students per grade, then I can imagine having a co-teacher, especially a Korean co-teacher in the class with you, will make the world of difference. I find it really rewarding when the students learn from me, and I notice it week by week that they're remembering some certain phrases. I even do things like dances and gestures especially with the younger grades, 3rd grade, because I feel like when they're moving, a lot of them learn better by doing kinesthetic learning. Second, in my school specifically, a nice chilled atmosphere. I have really kind co-workers that I just feel so lucky with the co-workers and the teachers that are surrounding me, the staff that's surrounding me. They're just really accommodating to me. I'm really grateful, because that was something I said to myself and to my family before I left, was I really just want to make sure my schools and workplace are good. The fact that it's such a positive change and a nice work environment, and I'm so happy and thankful for that. I get a bonus for living rural, so I get a rural living bonus, and I get a multiple school pay because I work at 2 schools. I have 2, but some of my friends have 3 schools per week. Things usually are told to me very last minute. For example, I might be waiting for a class to turn up and the students don't turn up and the class should have started, and then I get told partway through that the kids are out on a field trip. Sometimes it can be a little frustrating, but you just have to be adaptable and accepting that it might happen. Sometimes some of the kids want to help their peers understand what the activity is, so sometimes I let the kids be the teacher. In some of my grades I have like little mini-me teachers, and they will volunteer and come and help me, as well as me asking them, oh, can I have your help, or can you go and help your friend? In Korea we have a long winter break from the start of January to March. But during that vacation time, when there's no kids at school, we still have to come into school, and basically we call it desk warming because we're not teaching, but we have to be at the school. So a lot of the time people are doing some Korean language study or watching movies, trying to plan ahead with some lessons. And eventually I just got so far ahead that I'm kind of sick of lesson planning that I just ended up the last few weeks of winter vacation at school try and study some Korean or watch some movies. I started watching the Marvel Cinematic Universe in timeline order. So now we're going to move on to the 3 random questions that I picked off Instagram. Just realized I've got 2 of the screenshots and the person that asked the question, but the 3rd screenshot I cannot find anywhere, but I have the question and the answer that I kind of prompted out on my laptop. So I'll answer the 3, but I don't actually remember or know off the top of my head who the 3rd question came from. So if you remember asking me this question and you want to claim the question credit, then feel free. So the first question is from Valinda Studies on Instagram. Was it difficult to get your ARC and setting up your phone and bank account? The ARC, which is the foreigner identification card, basically can't do anything in Korea living wise without the ARC. Like, that is something you need, and you have to do it within a certain amount of time upon entry into Korea. Our paperwork and everything we need was organized by our schools. So my co-teacher at the time got all this paperwork together and went through it with me, and then put it in an envelope for me and told me that some guy from the education office was going to pick me up and take me to the immigration office, because the immigration office was a few hours drive away from where I live and would have been impossible for me to get to alone. And we went to immigration with a lot of paperwork, and basically at the immigration office I didn't speak any English, so we had to kind of papago our way through with the help of the Office of Education guy who had driven us there. And honestly, it went pretty smoothly for me. I can't remember how much it was, honestly, off the top of my head. I think it was like 30,000. And then basically they gave me a piece of paper that was like a temporary ARC. So then once I got my ARC, I needed to open the bank account so my school could pay me. Honestly, if I didn't go with my co-teacher, I would not have been able to open a bank account because it was so much paperwork. But I got set up with online banking, an online banking app, which has just been the best thing and so useful for things like paying bills and transferring money to whoever I need to transfer money to. The other thing in Korea is that banks are only open in the week, so you can't weekend bank. So if you want to go to the bank, you have to book time off work to do so. In terms of my phone, I actually don't have a phone contract from Korea. I use a prepaid SIM through a company called Kimchi Mobile, and my friend Bianca actually gave me her spare SIM because I was kind of stuck on my first few weeks of being in Korea because I didn't have time to prepare a SIM card because I only had 2 weeks to get to Korea. So it wasn't really like, I didn't even think about it, honestly. So I can't really give you more info on phone contracts. If you have experience with getting a phone contract in Korea, then please put it in the comments because that could definitely help someone out who's looking at doing that. The second question I have is from Talia Lang, and the question is, have you experienced the hair loss foreigners experience in Korea? So if you haven't noticed, my hair is pretty damaged. Also, it's naturally curly wavy, and also in my life I've always shed a lot of hair. I tend to leave a trail of just hair everywhere that gets on everything. So because I've bleached and coloured my hair so many times over the years, especially as a teenager, in terms of hair loss, I haven't noticed any particular difference because I've always lost a lot of hair when I've washed my hair. But there are some things you can do to combat it if you're in Korea. You can buy shower filters, so I have one on my shower which helps the water condition to make it less harsh, because I feel like that is what mostly is effective on foreign hair. Also, they sell like shampoo and conditioner for hair loss, so you could invest in those products or try and find them. If you were coming to visit, for example, I really wouldn't be too concerned, but if you're in Korea for an extended period of time, then it might be a good idea to invest in some kind of like hair loss specific shampoo or conditioner or treatment that you can use, incorporate it into your like weekly hair wash schedule, whatever that is. And the third question of somebody, I have no idea who it is, I'm really sorry, so if you want to take the credit for this question, feel free. Do you feel like your Korean has improved? The answer to that is yes and no. Yes, because I definitely know more Korean than before I came to Korea, and I feel like I can read Hangul a lot quicker because I see it all the time, and I always challenge myself to try and read signs as I'm going past them. There's definitely like pros about being surrounded by the language, and like passively you can pick up some things, but I would definitely be further ahead, and I'm not as far ahead with my Korean journey as I would have liked to have been. Honestly, I haven't made enough time to study, and it hasn't really been much of a priority for me recently. For me, day to day, I can do basic things like I can order in a restaurant, I can order in a cafe, I can speak to the shop staff at the checkout and things like that. I should be making more effort to study, so yes and no. Okay, so that is the end of the video today. I have done my 6-month update, and I hope it shed some light on my experiences and also generally life in South Korea. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to leave them below. And if you'd like to, you can follow me on Instagram, where I post a lot more about daily life in South Korea. And also I tend to do a lot of question prompts for my videos on there. And I think with that, that is the end of the video. So thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye!